Thank you for having me, everyone. This is my second presentation that I've done ever, so I'm a little nervous, so if it starts off a little shaky, and you see the microphone shaking, that's why. So, welcome to my presentation. It's called A Backpacker's Journey. I will be unpacking the lessons that I learned traveling over an 8-month backpacking trip that I did with my best friend Aiden for 6 months and then by myself for 2. We're going to be going through 7 lessons that I learned throughout the trip. Although I learned many more, these were the 7 most poignant that I felt would be valuable to share with you all today. So, as Murray was saying, I definitely caught the travel bug, partially through experiences, but also partly through the DNA. My grandparents are actually here today, and they are members of PROBUS, but not this club. They are members of the Burlington Club. So you might ask, why are they here when they could have just gone to that Burlington Club first presentation that I did? Well, they were traveling. I'm very glad that they could come today, though. Maybe just to get rid of the nerves and to get us all in the right mindset and vibe, I would like to ask everyone a quick question. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of hands here. Has anyone been outside of Canada? Just raise your hand if you have. All right. What about North America? Outside of Mexico? Okay, amazing. What about, has anybody been to over 10 countries? Okay, amazing. So we're very well traveled here, the most of us. So get in that vibe, get in that mindset as we move along. It's not a competition, of course. I just want to gauge how well traveled we are. So by the end of this presentation, I wanted to kind of structure this presentation. By the end of it, I hope you all gain 3 things. These are my goals. I hope you gain a better idea of what backpacking is and why people do it. I hope to inspire you to travel somewhere new and maybe get out of your comfort zone. And finally, I hope to remind you that the world is a beautiful place filled with beautiful people. So first, let me give you a little backstory about myself. I've always been kind of a crazy child, playing in mud, climbing on trees, a lot of sports, very adventurous, that sort of thing. And back in this time, my best friend Aiden, who I met at the age of 4, the summer before kindergarten, me and him shared these passions of being crazy kids and wanting to explore. We remember watching Indiana Jones and Star Wars and being like, wow, it'd be so cool to explore the universe in Star Wars, which, it's not possible yet, hopefully one day. But to just explore and see ancient temples and be a discoverer, how neat would that be? So we remember discussing traveling from quite a young age. And 2 years ago, Aiden and I, we shook hands, I guess it was more like 3 years ago now, we shook hands to committing to save up enough money to fulfill this dream that we had that we were young. So we both really grinded that summer, the summer of 2022. I worked as a server and him as a tree planter. We saved up as much money as we possibly could. And we decided to head on this massive trip, which took us to Europe for 3 months, and Central and South America, as well as Mexico, for another 4. So, as I stated before, I am a budget traveler, so I feel like I should provide you guys some proof. So this is my budget, and this is the average American budget, and I'm just not pulling these numbers. These are numbers that I very meticulously amalgamated online with extensive research. So these are, I couldn't find a Canadian budget because, as you all know, I'm sure if you've done research, it's much easier to find statistics on Americans than us Canadians. So roughly, the per week cost of an American's average trip is $2,700. My per week cost worked out to be around $500, maybe $525, all in. So yes, I was definitely budget traveling, although the next time I plan to go on a big trip, which will be in this September, I'm going to be cheaper than this, or less expensive than this for sure. So now that we've given a little bit of introduction and framework, I'd like to move on to the first lesson, which is the best things in life are found on the other side of fear, which is just a quote that I kind of commandeered. It's a nice way of saying it, from Will Smith. And it's not something that I learned on the trip, but rather something that I discovered throughout my life. And when I reflect on various moments throughout my life, the closer that I followed to this quote, the better life became. So this is me back in middle school, and this is me now. I think back to middle school, and I don't know if you can believe it or not, but I was actually bullied quite a lot. My favorite color was purple. I was the only boy in the choir, and I would wear girls' skinny jeans, as the men's skinny jeans were not tight enough. I liked them really cutting off the circulation and wrapped around my legs. So from a pretty young age, I had to learn to get over the fear of being judged, which for someone whose second favorite color was pink, I was being judged quite a lot. But I'm glad I pushed past this fear anyways, as it made me more confident and provided me the foundation for passions that I have today, like drumming and fashion, I guess. So I'd just like to do a quick exercise. I'd like everyone to look at this quote. Was fear or discomfort involved in any of the best or most impactful moments in your life? And think back, right? So, for example, maybe proposing. I'm sure a lot of you have done that in your life. It seems pretty scary. I plan to do it one day. Unfortunately, my girlfriend is always kind of asking, and I'm like, okay, maybe let's just wait a little bit. Maybe a first kiss, going somewhere new, moving, meeting a stranger, making a new friend. For me, definitely getting up on stage and doing this is very scary. But I really think that it's so important to push past these. Like on the drive up, I'm thinking, why am I doing this? I'm scared, I could just be home. Like, what's the point? I could go embarrass myself. But it's in those moments where I really think to myself, no, like Marco, you got this, push past. You're going to be grateful that you did this. So for me, during my travels, this is by far the most important quote that I lived by. As you can imagine, there are many moments that I had this feeling. From saying hi to strangers in hostels, every 2, 3, 4 days, I'm moving to a new place and having to meet new people, to practicing my Spanish, a language that I've been trying to learn. But it's hard going to a place where there are locals and being a foreigner and not wanting to mess up and embarrass yourself, to snorkeling with sharks in Belize, to paragliding over the second biggest canyon in the world in Colombia. I get really motion sick, so that was a huge decision for me. And I did get really, really motion sick, but it was fun. Sleeping in shared rooms, embracing language barriers, all of these things are initially kind of scary. But this motto, which can also be looked as seeking discomfort, it helps you grow. Embracing this mentality makes you realize that every stranger is just a friend you have yet to meet. It makes us more compassionate and understanding of ourselves. As we feel ourselves getting out of our comfort zone and out of our own head, we realize that I'm just an individual just like everyone else, and we're all just looking to make connections and be happy and be loved. So you may think now that my greatest fear that I had to overcome was found on my trip, but in fact it was actually found right in Hamilton, in our own country of Canada. So I had a very strong desire to travel. It's something I've wanted to do my entire life, but I just hold this down. There we go. It's something that I wanted to do my whole life, but I was scared. Scared if it was worth it. But moreover, scared that I needed to prove to others and to the world its worth. It's an expensive world. Me and Murray were just talking about that outside. I just graduated, and I had the feeling of friends, my family, and society wanting me to know what I wanted to do with my life. And I felt a lot of pressure from this. I was really scared to be a disappointment. And I know that other young adults can really relate to this. I'm sure that, I know my friends do. Fresh out of university, and I got no money, and I want to travel for 8 months. What am I doing? This was definitely my biggest fear, but I appreciate my family for supporting me and not disowning me with this decision. So before continuing to my next lesson, I would like to address the elephant that is now in the room. Who am I, a 25-year-old, to be giving you all wise people advice? Well, first I would like to say you definitely do not need to take my advice. It's just a presentation. But I guess what I would like to relate it to is maybe think of your grandkids, think of your friends' grandkids or nieces, nephews, whoever those maybe younger adults may be trying to find themselves in life. Think of them coming to you with a maybe proposal that seems kind of crazy, like I want to travel for 8 months, or I want to start a business, or I want to do whatever you may think is crazy. So hopefully this presentation gives you some kind of support or framework that you can reflect upon and say, you know what, this crazy travel nut 25-year-old, he actually did learn a lot. Hopefully I can convince you that I learned a lot by the end of the trip, by the end of this presentation. Anyways, let's move on to lesson number 2, that there is intrinsic value to doing cool, awesome, and fun stuff. So I'm very analytical. I worry about the future, I love planning, and I love providing reasoning for everything. So deciding to travel for this long was certainly not on a whim. I thought about it a lot. I'd often ask myself, am I making mistakes? And I would think about things big to small. I'd be analyzing everything. And upon reflection, I did definitely not make a mistake. This trip was incredible and incredibly valuable. I grew so much, and much of this growth can be attributed to what seems like such a silly lesson. So as I said, I'm 25, and thanks to this lesson, which I've been kind of trying to follow for a lot of my life, it has led me to do a lot of very cool stuff. Cool stuff which was cool, but also made me a better person. And backpacking, I think, is the most pure expression of this, doing cool stuff. Life feels like it's worth living when backpacking. You look forward to later that day, to tomorrow, to a week from now. And when you're doing awesome stuff, you can answer pretty important life questions like, am I happy? Could be the most important one of them all. And all your time is free time, literally. The world is your oyster, also literally. If you meet people in London, and they're going to, I don't know, Lyon or Malta or Rome, go, might as well. And that's what's so cool about backpacking. You just, okay. This lesson of doing cool stuff, it led me to Morocco, which is one of the favorite countries that I've ever been to. I had some truly incredible experiences, from riding on camels through the Sahara Desert to camping and sand surfing in the Sahara Desert as well, which was truly one of the best experiences of my life. I visited the city of Marrakesh with dense markets, amazing food, and incredible architecture. I surfed and ate seafood every day in the city of Essaouira. But the best experience of them all in this country was the people. I got to see them at their happiest and most compassionate as I was there during the country's historic run in the World Cup. It was a huge deal, as they were the first ever Arabic and African nation to make it to the semifinals. And I was there as a Canadian, and I don't know if you all remember, but Canada and Morocco were in the same group in the World Cup. So I was there watching and cheering for Canada amongst all these Moroccans, which was a truly awesome experience. And I owe it to this lesson that there is value in seeking out doing cool things. Okay, that's better. Thanks for sticking with me through that, guys. That's that lesson. So let's move on to a much more important one. Food is awesome. Food can teach you, it can surprise you, open your horizons, but more importantly than that, it tastes really, really good. And I just had to put this lesson in because it was such an important part of my trip, trying all these new cuisines. And I'm bringing you all to different places for each of these lessons. And I could really go anywhere because every country has fantastic food to offer. But I would like to take you to my favorite country that I've ever been to, which is Colombia. The variety in Colombian food is fantastic. You have the indigenous, Spanish, and Caribbean influences, making a very interesting blend. And each region really has their own style of food to offer. But for me, specifically, the best thing was the fresh produce and the fruit. I love fruit. For example, I went to a market in Cali, Colombia, walked in with a couple bucks in my pocket, and within the span of 5 minutes had tried 10 different fruits I had never seen nor heard of before in my life. There's something really special about trying a singular food that you've never heard of. It's different trying a whole dish, which is like a mix mash of a bunch of things, but trying a singular fruit that you didn't even know existed it's really cool. It's very special for me. I loved markets because of the price, and it was just possibly one of my favorite things that I could do in Latin America. But more than the price, what I loved about the markets was the opportunity to practice Spanish, hear amazing stories, and gain a better understanding of the culture. 3 extremely important things for me through this leg of the journey. While I was trying tlayudas and fruit with tahine and these little Timbit looking things, I was telling the person that sold these, like, hey, these look like Timbits from Canada. You ever heard of those? No, I haven't. But it was great. This is one of my favorite things for sure. And when you're backpacking, you're on a budget, right? And I think budget living is honestly better for good eats. You stay away from tourist traps. It's more fun, it's more authentic, and you're eating with locals. It's a great time. And before we really quick, before we move on to the next lesson, I'd like to just take you around the world, introduce you to a couple of things that I ate. I'm sure that you all have tried some of these before. So you got to embrace the culture, right? Wiener Schnitzel in Vienna. I had fish and chips when I was in Dover, England. Pierogies in Krakow, in Poland. Pastel de nata, I don't know if I pronounced that right, in Portugal. And pizza every single day, literally every single day, 14 out of 14, when I was in Italy. But no, I'm not only going to eat the things that I know I'm going to like. Who's not going to like these things? You got to be crazy. I'm going to try everything. Chapulines, try crickets. Tried those in Mexico. Tacos de seso, brain tacos, not a fan. Also tried those in Mexico. Chocolate santaferreño, which is a hot chocolate and cheese, a very common dish, a delicacy in, maybe not a delicacy, but a common dish in Colombia. Goulal, which is a Moroccan street snail dish. Not a big fan of that one either. But maybe the weirdest of them all. Cool American flavor. Chips from Netherlands. Weirdos. And if someone told me they travel just to eat, I would totally understand that. I had a blast trying everything, regardless of liking it or not. And I also barely cooked for myself. So that's pretty awesome. Moving on, another lesson that I learned, very important, is you gotta go slow with the flow. So as I stated before, I'm a planner, I'm analytical. So months before we left, I knew where I wanted to go. I had so many ideas, it was crazy. And I was done everything that I needed months before I left. So I had researched the best credit card. It's the passport from Scotiabank, if anyone is interested. I don't have a referral code or anything, it's just a big fan. I knew what hiking shoes I wanted. I had a backpack, I had my adapters for my outlets. I looked at all the best travel routes. I had my Eurorail log plan. I had canceled my insurance for my car. Every single thing that you could think of, I had it done. My buddy Aiden, on the other hand, he bought his backpack the day before we left. So we're very different in that way. So I was really trying to plan this trip And Aiden was like, buddy, we just got to go and figure it out when we get there. I was like, no, I'm too excited. So we struck a compromise. Him and I wanted to go to Oktoberfest in Munich, and that was the very end of September. I think it was actually the first weekend of October. Side note, very weird that Oktoberfest is in September, and there's only one weekend in October. It just goes through September. So he was like, okay, we know we're going to be there, so we kind of have to plan our route so we end up there and we're flying into London. So I was like, let me plan those 3 weeks from London to Munich. And he said, all right, have fun. So I did. I had a lot of fun. I should insert a little evil laugh sound effect here. So this is our Interrail log. And what's crazy about this is that this, kind of up here to down here, was all in 3 weeks. So London, Manchester, Calais, Paris, Brussels, Bruges, Ghent, Nordvik, Amsterdam, Berlin, Krakow, Liechtenstein, Salzburg, Innsbruck, Interlaken, Munich, and more in the span of 3 weeks. It was amazing. So much fun, and we saw so much. An absolute roller coaster. But we ran out of gas pretty quick. I mean, look at this guy. So we ended up after Oktoberfest, we stayed in a small town in Switzerland called Interlaken, which is famous for being near Grindelwald and Lauterbrunnen, two of the best places to hike in the world. They're world renowned for amazing waterfalls and mountains and just like stuff out of a fairy tale. But when we got there, it would not stop raining. It was pouring, so much cloud coverage, and we did not get to see a thing. But we were so excited that we had booked 3 nights in this place. So we were just in our hostel for 3 days, and I learned something so valuable. I met so many cool people in this hostel, just stuck inside in the rain, that I immediately was like, what am I doing here? Like, why are we going day to day from place to place? We need to go slow with the flow, as after all, it's not about going, it's about knowing each of these places. So within 3 weeks, or at the end of these crazy 3 weeks, I learned from my mistakes. And this lesson, it brings me to Guatemala, specifically a town called San Pedro. So San Pedro lies on Lake Atitlan, which is shown here, which is one of the most beautiful lakes in the entire world. It's a volcanic crater with volcanoes all around it, and small indigenous Mayan villages kind of nestled in between the mountains and volcanoes. It's absolutely fantastic. I spent 2 weeks here in a homestay in this small town taking Spanish classes, spending time with my wonderful homestay family and hanging out with other classmates. There's my Spanish teacher, Daphne, in the middle there. It was amazing. 2 weeks in one place ended up being such a blessing for so many reasons. Practicing my Spanish, meeting new people, everything. But one of the main ones was meeting Dominique. Dominique was the man of the homestay, the father of the household that I stayed at. And Dominique taught me so much. Work ethic, being a good father, important things like this. He had 3 jobs, so he ran his homestays, he was a honey farmer, and he also had a couple of coffee plantations. And it really opened my mind what people go through to provide. He told me this story one day when I was helping him out on my day off on the weekend at his coffee plantation. He sat me down and he told me a story for 2 hours about his illegal journey from Guatemala to the States. So when he was 17, he decided to leave to make money and provide, to send that money back from to his family, as a lot of other people do in these small towns where there's not that much opportunity. This trip, he witnessed death, he witnessed starvation, he didn't think he was going to make it many, many times. Finally, when he did, he found himself completely isolated and alone, just not understanding the language and how anything works. And it was just an unbelievable story of like hardship and someone overcoming these challenges. And if I had never learned this lesson of I have to go slow with the flow, I would have never been able to develop a bond with him enough that he would have shared me this story, let alone even had the decision to want to stay in a place for 2 weeks. Not only that, I had the opportunity to explore Guatemala for a month. I was going country to country like 2-3 days. And I learned, that I want to stay and actually get to know a country. So I was able to see Mayan ruins. I was able to go to towns and markets, hike a volcano, do some amazing, amazing experiences that I would have never had the opportunity to if I hadn't gone slow with the flow. Just need a quick sip of water. Moving on to lesson 5, less is more. So this lesson, I think it's a good way to illustrate it is with my backpack, just right over there. I still use it, and it's a pretty messed up bag. I was having a conversation with my girlfriend and my mom recently about they think I should get a new backpack. And I've had this one for 8 years now, since I was 17. I got it in grade 12. One of the zippers doesn't work. The other zipper doesn't really work. It's one of the ones where when you pull it, the other side doesn't really zip up and you have to fiddle with it a lot to get it to work. It's frayed. It's broken in some other areas, but it still works. I brought my computer here today. It's seen better days. And I just think it's crazy that we live in a society where it's easier and cheaper to get a new one. So I really could order a bag for $40 on Amazon, pretty much the same brand, Herschel, to me. I could get it the next day. Seems amazing. Or I could pay someone to fix this bag, which probably would be more expensive or start at the same price, because the only things that people fix are those really nice things that it's worth it, not a $40 bag that you could get on Amazon. And I don't really know the solution to this. Maybe the solution is I learn how to fix this bag myself. But we can all agree that this definitely sucks. Less is more, and we know this deep down, but the actions of others in society kind of tells us otherwise. And living out of a backpack for 8 months, it really opened my eyes to how much expendable stuff I have at home. So this isn't my picture. This is actually a picture I grabbed online. Unfortunately, I didn't take a picture of my backpack, but it was pretty much the same. You had, a couple pairs of shorts, pair of pants. I had a puffer, rain jacket, some electronics, some t-shirts, a lot of underwear. But that's pretty much it. And for 8 months, I felt like I had more than enough that I could ever need. And coming home, I saw my closet, and I was like, this is crazy. What am I doing here? Backpacking is really eye-opening in this sense, because it opens your eyes to consumerism, which is something that we've all kind of just bought into. It's not really our fault. It's just that backpacking shines a light on this more. And we praise consumerism too. My buddy in high school, a 16-year-old, bought a Gucci belt. Why does a 16-year-old need a Gucci belt? It doesn't make any sense to me. And it's funny. I often think of things in terms of the cost of flights, as I look at them so often. So, for example, you could get a round trip to Portugal, or a lot of people that I know, my friends, it's popular to go to Toronto to go clubbing for a night. Very easily $500. You rent an Airbnb or get a hotel room, you get a booth, some bottles, easy $500. Or round trip to Portugal. You get some new Jordans. It's an easy 160s, probably more. Or you could fly to Cartagena in Colombia. Less is more, right? So with one less belt, Gucci belt, I would like to just illustrate this lesson, what you could get instead of that belt in an amazing country, which is Nicaragua. This is a beautiful country with incredibly friendly people, amazing scenery, wonderful weather, and great culture and history. So you pick, okay? This guy does look cool, and I'm not trying to bash on Gucci here. It's a nice brand. It's just the example that I used from my buddy. So you pick. You can get a Gucci belt, look like this guy, or tobogganing down a volcano, going to stunning beaches, or visiting Ometepe, an island of 2 volcanoes in Nicaragua, one which you can hike up and see these views. Come on. I think this hike costed me like I don't even remember, maybe like 10, 20 bucks with a guide. It's crazy, right? This model also applies to the mentality of saving and spending, which I have the disposition to save. For example, with shoes, I'll just buy some thrifted shoes. That's how much it costed, 17 bucks, instead of buying the new pair. My whole outfit is thrifted. You know, I'm a thrifty guy. And these small things build up massively over time. And for me, what I could use that money for is paying for these amazing experiences. All right, moving on to lesson 6. This is my second last lesson. Is the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. We have a routine, right? We're focused on what's going on around us, which kind of reinforces ideas that we already have. We live in an echo chamber, right? A lot of the time, at least, we do. We start to feel comfortable. This is where we are now. Like, we have a good grasp of what's going on. But the world is pretty big. It's a massive, actually. There's 8 billion of us here. And in space, I mean, come on. I don't even know what I had for lunch yesterday. I'm not even kidding. I don't know what I'm going to have for lunch tomorrow. So the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. This lesson takes me to another one of my favorite countries I've ever been to, which is Albania. Before going to Albania, I really knew nothing about this country at all. I had heard a couple things, like there was a big drug cartel in Albania that sold cocaine all throughout Europe, and that it was kind of dangerous. So really not good impressions at all. But I was so wrong. Albania is an amazing, amazing country. I knew so little that I couldn't even find this country on a map, let alone know that they were actually under the most extreme communist rule in the world, more extreme than the China or anyone from 46 to 76. They were so communist. This country was so communist that when China said, you know, let's partner up here, be commie buddies, they said, no, you're not communist enough for us. It's a true story. Before this country became a democracy in 1991, the citizens had undergone almost 50 years of brainwashing and torture. One example being, let's say I had tried to leave the country. You weren't allowed to leave the country of Albania. Let's say I was an Albanian citizen and I tried to leave, and I successfully escaped the country. Well, every single one of my immediate family members, as well as all of my cousins, would be sent to a concentration camp for 30 years. Crazy. No one was allowed out at all. Another example, if you go to the bottom of Albania, Sarande, pictured there, you can see the island of Corfu, which is a Greek island up there. So back in the 80s, Albanians would ask the government, or just locals, there would be questioning around the town of Sarande saying, why do they have lights on at night over there in Corfu? And the government officials cleverly would tell them, well, they have to work at night. You guys get to sleep. This is how brainwashed they were. And in 91, it just all flipped. And they became a democracy. Another one, crazy story, is right in 91, when it became a democracy, people were allowed to have money. So some guy thought it would be a great idea to bring a pyramid scheme to Albania. And 2/3 of the country, 2/3 of the people there lost everything instantly because they were like, oh, cool, I can give you money and get more? That sounds great. And, obviously this guy, he took advantage of that. So it's crazy. What's nuts is that I could have learned this stuff at home. Of course I could. I could have watched YouTube videos, read about it, but it doesn't seem urgent enough to learn about it at home. I'm going along my daily life, right? Which is totally valid. We all are. But I guess backpacking, what's so cool about it is it breaks this. It gets you out of your comfort zone, gets you out of your echo chamber, and it opens the doors to learning about these important and crazy stories that you never would have without doing it. But what I would like to stress is not that I am more open-minded, and not that I'm more worldly than before, Because in fact, upon reflection, what I would like to share is that I actually feel smaller, less important, and with the desire to learn more than ever. The world is huge, and when we get out of our small bubble, we find new possibilities, which is the cool thing, which is what's so cool about being human in today's day and age, is that we have the opportunity to do this. So I got a real quick lesson, lesson 7, the final lesson, that love for travel should be shared. And the reason I have this picture up is because this is my girlfriend, Nina. I was really lucky enough to have the chance to travel with her for the first time ever. Me and her went to Mexico, and it was her first time ever on a plane, her first time ever out of the country, and it was so great being able to share a passion of mine that I have with her. And she's definitely caught the travel bug too. Her and I are going on a super big trip this coming September. Traveling is such a cool hobby because it can be something different for everyone. It can be of personal discovery, it can be of exploration, curiosity, learning, and love, or relaxation and escapism, or to check off a bucket list item. It can be anything. For me, it means learning, having fun, making connections, trying new things, and more. And although I've now been to 37 countries, this lesson is actually best illustrated here with you guys in this room. So I have a quick question. Has anyone ever, you can raise your hands as well again this time, has anyone ever recommended a trip to another person or been recommended a trip from another person? No, I'm assuming pretty much everyone, right? So I would also like to ask if someone could shout it out, or maybe I'll pick on someone. Why did you recommend a trip? Harold, you're right there. Have you ever recommended a trip to someone?
Oh, yes.
Okay, why did you recommend a trip? Can I come over and just...
Because the food, the people, the experience, the life they lived, it's just fantastic.
It's fantastic. And the reason that you did it wasn't to brag, right?
No, they don't know us and we don't know them until you go and meet them.
Okay, exactly. It's not to brag. It's out of love, right? It's because Harold wanted to share his experience, right? He's not doing it to be like, oh, guys, look at what I did. He's like, no, I want you to experience this as well. You didn't have any one of those coupons where you refer a friend and you get some discounts. None, right? Yeah, you just did it out of love. I think this is what's so beautiful, is that when we have an amazing experience, we want others to experience this too. So hopefully, this presentation has inspired you to try something new or to travel to somewhere new, whether that be somewhere within an hour drive, whether that's somewhere within the country or out of the country. What I guess I would like to ask is, if this has inspired you, reach out to a friend, reach out to a neighbor, to someone in this room. You could reach out to me, even, whoever, and I'm sure that anyone in this room, or neighbors or whoever, would be super, super happy to suggest a great experience to you. And not to brag, it's just out of love. And just like every backpacker before me, before leaving for our journey, what we think the best thing about traveling is going to be is maybe learning to surf. Maybe it's exploring Mayan temples. Maybe it's trying new food. Maybe it's bungee jumping. Maybe it's whatever it is. Maybe it's something that you've always wanted to do, like go to the pyramids or whatever. But just like every single backpacker before me, what we learn is that the best thing is actually meeting people and making new friends with other backpackers and other people from around the whole world. It's not doing that cool thing you've always wanted to do, it's making friends. And I'm so, so grateful to have been able to make so many new friends from all around the world. And also better my friendship with my best friend, Aiden. It's pretty amazing. I just have friends all around the world now, and this thing of making connections is definitely what I'm most grateful for that this crazy trip brought me. So now that we've reached the end of this presentation, I hope that I've achieved these 3 things that we were talking about. I hope I helped you gain a better understanding of why people backpack. I hope I inspired you to travel somewhere new and maybe get out of your comfort zone. And I hope I reminded you that the world is a beautiful place filled with beautiful people. I mean, look around you. Thank you.